You can tell a lot about a person by the way they walk into a strip club. Most men come in loud, hunting attention, lust, or escape, but he came in like someone walking into a church. He wasn't there to sin or to be saved. He just wanted to sit somewhere quiet enough to forget. He was in his 70s, dressed too neatly for the kind of place we were in. A dark navy suit that probably cost more than my rent, a wrist heavy with gold, and eyes that had seen things no one should ever see. His hair was silver, perfectly combed back, but his hands trembled slightly when he reached for his drink. He didn't belong there, and somehow, that's exactly what made him fit. I remember the first time our eyes met. It wasn't a look of desire or curiosity. It was recognition. Like he saw something in me that mirrored his own quiet ache. I walked over, not because I was told to, but because I wanted to. Something about him didn't feel like a transaction. It felt like a story waiting to be told. When I asked his name, he said it softly, Alan. Just Alan. No pretense, no arrogance. His voice carried the weight of someone who had lived long enough to know that power doesn't buy peace. He said he was visiting from Hawaii. I smiled politely, thinking it was another fantasy men liked to build: fake jobs, fake money, fake lives. But then he showed me his business card, embossed with a logo I'd later Google, only to find out it was real. He owned a resort by the ocean, the kind of place that looked like paradise to everyone else, but, as I'd learn later, felt like a prison to him. We talked for hours that night. About nothing, really, the weather, the city, the price of bourbon. But there was a strange gentleness in the way he spoke. He wasn't trying to impress me. He was trying to feel normal. When he came back the following week, I wasn't surprised. There was something about the way he looked at me, not like a fantasy, but like someone trying to hold on to the last piece of warmth he believed still existed in the world. That night, he looked exhausted. His shoulders drooped under the weight of a suit that suddenly seemed too heavy. I remember reaching into my purse and finding half an edible I'd saved from the weekend. I offered it to him, half joking. "Maybe this will help you relax," I said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe it will," he whispered. He took it, and what happened next changed everything. It's strange how a little square of sugar and THC can unlock a lifetime of silence. We sat there as the lights flickered, and the low hum of bass filled the background. I saw his expression shift, his jaw unclenched, his gaze softened, and then the words started pouring out. He told me about Ireland, about a time when he was young and angry and full of purpose, about how he joined the IRA, believing he was fighting for something righteous. He said it started noble, but it ended in nightmares. At first, his tone was steady, detached, factual, like a man giving a report. But then his voice cracked when he mentioned his first kill. He said it was self-defense, that he didn't mean for it to happen. The second time was the same, an ambush, survival, instinct. But then came the third. The one he could never forgive himself for. He said the man had killed his best friend, the only person who truly understood him. They'd grown up together, fought together, bled together. And one day, in the middle of a chaos he still couldn't describe, that man, his friend, was shot and died in front of him. Alan said he lost control, that he didn't think, didn't breathe, he just reacted. He caught the killer, and in a rage that blurred reason, he scalped him. He said it in a whisper, like the word itself could kill him all over again. I'll never forget the way his voice broke when he said it. It wasn't pride. It wasn't even confession. It was mourning. He looked down at his trembling hands as though he could still feel the blood there. He said that after the adrenaline faded, the reality hit him like a tidal wave. The horror, the regret, the image that wouldn't stop replaying in his mind. He said he'd spent the rest of his life trying to make up for that moment. I listened in silence. I could feel my own chest tighten, my skin prickle, because I realized that beneath all his wealth and success, he was just a man running from himself. He told me he'd built his resort not as a monument to luxury, but as an escape. A sanctuary to keep his mind quiet. He'd surround himself with people, music, laughter, anything to drown out the sound of gunfire in his dreams. But the ocean, he said, never let him forget. "The waves," he murmured once, They sound like the men I lost calling my name. There was nothing I could say to that. What do you tell a man who's been haunted by ghosts for 50 years? I wasn't trained to give absolution. I was there to entertain, to smile, to play my part. But in that moment, the roles didn't matter. He wasn't a client. He was a wounded soul sitting across from another one. He told me he never married. Said he'd tried to once, but every time his fiancée touched his hands, he'd flinch because all he could see was what they'd done. He said that's when he decided to spend his life helping others instead, funding schools, building shelters, paying for funerals of veterans who died alone. Not because it erased what he'd done, but because it made the days bearable. I started to look forward to his visits, not in the way I did with others, but in a quieter, deeper sense. He'd always ask for me, never anyone else. He didn't want dances or drinks. He wanted to sit, talk, sometimes just listen to the music in silence. He'd tell me about the ocean, how he'd watch the sunrise every morning and pretend each one was another chance at redemption. I didn't realize how much I cared about him until the night he didn't show up. Then another week passed, and another. I texted his number once, but it didn't go through. I looked up the resort online, and the ownership had changed hands. I knew. When the letter came months later, I couldn't open it at first. It felt sacred, like touching something too pure for this world. Inside was a short note, written in neat, deliberate strokes. You helped me remember that I was still human. You didn't judge me when you should have. Thank you for seeing me as something more than what I did. I hope, one day, you forgive yourself for whatever you carry, too. And beneath that, a photo him standing by the ocean, smiling faintly. The waves behind him shimmered in gold sunlight. For once, he looked free. Sometimes, I think about how strange it is. The way two people from different worlds can collide at the perfect time to remind each other what it means to be alive. I was just a girl dancing to forget my own mistakes, and he was a man spending millions to bury his. Yet somehow, in that dim, smoky room, we found a kind of peace together, the kind that doesn't last forever, but stays with you just long enough to change something inside you. Alan once said that guilt doesn't fade. It just becomes a part of your story, like a scar that doesn't hurt anymore but still reminds you of what you survived. Maybe he was right. Because every time I hear the low hum of a bass line at work, I think of his trembling hand over mine. Every time I see a man sitting alone at a table, I wonder what ghosts he's hiding. And every time I catch my reflection under those colored lights, I realize how many people walk into that place searching not for sin, but for a moment of grace. I'll never forget him, not because of his money or his stories, but because he showed me something raw and rare. That redemption isn't found in wealth or power or even forgiveness. It's found in the quiet courage to face yourself and keep living anyway. Maybe that's what Alan did before he died. Maybe, standing by that ocean, he finally forgave himself, and in a strange way, forgave me too. And maybe that's what we were all doing that night, two broken people trying to remember what it felt like to be whole.